Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 27 of Divergent Dialogues. Today, we will be talking about supporting autistic and ADHD burnout. So, if you haven't checked out our previous episode, we talked all about, what is autistic and ADHD burnout. So, if you haven't had a listen to that, I'd recommend that you listen to that before you get stuck into this episode. So at the end of our last episode, we are talking about how, when it comes to burnout, prevention is, the most ideal way of managing burnout because once you're in the burnout, it usually takes deep rest in order to recuperate from the burnout. So the most important thing when it comes to burnout is recognizing the signs. And I mean that it might kind of manifest differently for different people, but generally, I'm happy to share my experience of when I know I'm kind of going into that burnout space, and I'm sure Teena will be will be happy to share as well. But I just noticed that when I'm going into burnout, it is kind of this slow burn. It's not like I'm not just suddenly burnt out. And I think previous to like understanding like interoception and how I really needed to start paying attention to my body and its internal cues, I'm a lot more aware now. And I also actually found that when I commenced ADHD medication, it did help a little bit more with. I mean, it was annoying in the sense that I couldn't ignore my internal bodily cues as much. Um, like I couldn't just like dissociate from the pain in my body, but it was good in the sense of I can't ignore it, so it really strongly prompts me to do something about it. So when I'm feeling I'm going into burnout, usually I just have this constant sense of like overwhelm. I feel like I'm kind of treading water, or things are all like I feel like I can't get ahead. I'm my sensory overwhelm, like you just look at me and I'm like, don't look at me, I'm sensory overwhelmed, like just the
Yeah.
don't touch me, nothing, I can't deal with it. When it comes to thinking, like I feel like I'm trying to like push thoughts through cement. That's how I feel. I can't I have like no energy to engage in any like social contact or any of like my kind of preferred extracurricular activities. It's kind of like I just have just enough energy to get through and do the things that I need to. And then when it gets really bad, sometimes I can't even do that. And things kind of go by the wayside. I usually feel a lot more like emotionally vulnerable. Like I might be more prone to meltdowns and things like that. So, and also like I just have this general like feeling tired and exhausted sort of feeling. So I think like something that could be helpful is to kind of keep track or find your kind of unique way or indicators of burnout. But Teena, did you kind of want to share, like, is your experience similar or is it different to mine?
No, it is. It's very much so similar. Some things that in tracking where I'm at and trying to measure burnout type symptoms, I pay attention to what's my thoughts, feelings, and attitudes towards the things that matter most to me,
Yeah.
where I choose to put my limited energy into. And for me, being connected to my kids and them being neurodivergent as well, being supportive, understanding, compassionate, holding space for them so they can develop their emotion skills in a nice, healthy way. And when I am starting to struggle and burnout is coming at me, I don't have the capacity to do that. That's a big one for me, for recognizing, oh, things are going a bit pear-shaped here because Teena, you are not, being the parent that you want to be. I mean, sometimes it's hard just for other reasons, but when it's more consistent, then yeah, it's like, okay, things are off here. And yeah, the no interest to engage in my special interests is a big one. Doing my PhD, my research that's my fun stuff, like that's what I live for. And it's, yeah, if I look at my computer and think I can't be bothered, then that's a red flag. That's, oh, what's going on there? I create time. Like that's a thing that I'm just always trying to get to, my research. So if I don't have the energy or the interest, then okay, things aren't quite right.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, it's really important to pick up on those internal cues. But if that's something that's a bit of a struggle for you, it might be about kind of figuring out some of those observable kind of behaviors or things that you do. And, you might be able to kind of keep a little bit of a record of that. And it might even be helpful to share it with loved ones, to be like, hey, like if you notice these signs about like that, I'm not engaging in my interests as much. I'm not talking to people, like I'm kind of socially withdrawing and things like that. Like, hey, like I'd find it really helpful if you could kind of let me know that you're noticing that, and that might prompt me to go, oh yeah, actually maybe I need to like put a few things in place so I can kind of get into like a better space again.
So talking about the strategies and prevention and so forth, something I find, like tracking how you're feeling, but how do you do that without it being an extra pressure and, like a thing to do? For all the Apple users amongst us, because I use Apple products because they just make sense to me. There's an app that comes in your Apple Health, which is where you can track your mood, your state of mind, and it's so simple because it literally is off a little list. You can pick, your overall mood for the day, your mood at the moment. You pick what the words that sort of fit, and you can use as many as you want. There's a list. Takes away from the thinking, and then you get to pick from another list of the things that are contributing to that. And then there's a little spot where if you want to put in some free text for context, you can. And it's just, you can do it from your Apple Watch as well. A really, really easy way to sort of keep track when you feel like you need to start paying attention to what's going on and how you're feeling. I'm sure there's other stuff for Android users. I just have no idea about that.
Well, I was going to say, I use Android because that makes sense to my brain. Apple doesn't make sense to my brain. But I think, find something that's simple and easy. So I have a workbook called, it's about how to handle burnout. So that has a few different kind of daily planners and things like that, and ways you can track, to help prevent burnout. But also where hopefully, well, maybe not by the time we release this episode, but towards the end of the year, we're actually going to be adding some episode guides for paid subscribers on Substack. So in the episode guide for this episode, we'll probably put like a few little options there for you if you want to be a paid subscriber to Divergent Dialogues. But I think it's about finding something that is simple and easy, because we don't want to be adding like extra things that are gonna, cause burnout because you're having to do like 20 steps or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is really important, that it feels simple and easy to you. I mentioned tracking off my watch and, using Apple products. But for some people who find technology a bit too complicated, a bit too complex, or just not interested, that would actually be really burdensome. As simple as it is, it would be really burdensome for someone who doesn't have any interest in that sort of thing. And from an ADHD perspective, it doesn't have to be the only one way. You don't have to do the same thing all the time. Caitlin, you mentioned your navigating burnout that you have, and having lots of different options to track you know how you're feeling and what like the burnout symptoms you're experiencing. You might want to change, you know, like use this planner this month and then do it a different way next month, because there's dopamine in that change for the ADHDer.
Interesting. Some people like stickers as well, using stickers.
Yeah.
And yeah, some people, they might like a wall planner, they might like to print something, they might like something digital. So it's really, there's no one right way to do it. It's literally finding something that's simple and easy and likely to be maintained. So like for me, even though it's probably boring, I prefer something to do, like have a routine or a way, and I just rinse, repeat, because it reduces a lot of executive functioning for me, because I don't have to think about it. I just do it. But yeah, for other people, they might kind of want something a little bit more interesting. So yeah, it's about finding what works for you. Something that has really helped me in managing my burnout has been pacing. So I don't know about you, Teena, but I think we're probably similar in this way. And by probably, I mean definitely. We we have a bit of a tendency to take on probably more than like is within our capacity. And just because we really love our work, it's wrapped up in our interests. And I like FOMO is something I really struggle with. So like fear of missing out. Like if there's like a really good opportunity, I'm like, oh, I want to do it. But I guess as I've got older, I've learned to, I guess, have a look at what I really value and what's really important to me, and being a little bit more choosy with what I commit to, and I guess being more aware of my capacities. So, like, I'm not someone who can just go out all weekend and doing social events. Like for me, it's like maybe like one like social event a week or a fortnight. Like I catch up with a lot of my friends, like, you know, we talk over Zoom or text or whatever. But you know, for some people it's like they're at work all week and then they're at social events all weekend. And for some people that's great and like they really enjoy that. But for me, that's just I just can't do that. I just get so burnt out.
Yeah, I actually, one of my signs of burnout is saying yes, like by default, because of that want to be liked, please people, you know, be agreeable, helpful, all those kinds of things. I notice that, yeah, when I'm heading towards burnout, I'm just indiscriminately saying yes to everything, which, you know, makes it 10 times worse. This is just like, oh, because, yeah, I don't have time to think about what I'm saying yes to. And then things are on my doorstep. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't. This is too much, because, yeah, much the same. I need slower weekends where, you know, one thing is plenty for me, and being the mum of 3 young children, yeah, those weekends can sometimes be completely overrun by things that have nothing to do with me, which means I don't get anything in that weekend, because I want to, you know, let them have their sleepovers and take them to their sporting events and whatnot. But that's it. You know, that's the I'm at capacity. You know, chatting with the parents on the soccer field and all those sorts of things. I'm done now.
Yeah, and you know, I guess like I mean, I don't have children, so that means that you know, in a lot of ways I'm able to pace things out a lot easier. But you know, I do have a wife, and you know, when you have a partner or you have children, or you might even be living with other family members and caring for them, yeah, we're not just it's not just us. You know, we do have to think of others, but we really do need to think of ourselves. And I think another thing that's been really helpful for me is learning how to set healthy boundaries with others. And oh my goodness, it is hard. It is really hard when you've had a lifetime of saying yes, 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 and people pleasing. And sometimes it's not even people pleasing. Sometimes people aren't sure how to say no, like they don't want to be rude or mean, or like, so yeah, that can be really challenging for some people. But I always say, when it comes to setting boundaries, it's like riding a bike. The more you do it, the easier it gets.
Yeah, and you know, people often don't understand when, or socially, social conditioning, social rules, social etiquette, we're not really allowed to say things like, no, I'm sorry, I'm just really needing some mental rest because I've had a lot of executive function things happening this week and I'm exhausted. Because the rebuttal to that is, but I really, it's my birthday party, like you're not going to come.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard putting those boundaries in sometimes, because then next weekend there's something else that's just as important, to people. So when you are learning how to put boundaries in place, first of all, knowing what your capacity is. We often, as neurodivergent people, we push ourselves well beyond our capacity. So learning where is your happy medium, and also knowing that will fluctuate. Some weekends I can do a couple of things perfectly fine, and other weekends I can do nothing. So learning how to read your capacity and setting boundaries accordingly. But if you need to reduce the amount of information you're giving to people when setting those boundaries, do that, because the less information you provide, then the less they have to push back with.
My favorite is, if I'm put on the spot, I'm not sure, I'll just say, oh, sorry, I just need to look at my calendar, I'll get back to you. Or, oh, I just need to have a bit of a think about that, I'll get back to you. So you don't have, like, the person may be pushing for it, but you don't actually have to give them an answer there and then. And sometimes just having some time and space away to think about it, get back to them, can be really helpful. But by no means am I saying take some time and then go and say yes either. And it can be really hard. Like, I think sometimes, like, often we're friends with a lot of other neurodivergent folks, and we're going to go into this a bit more in our next few episodes. But we might experience some rejection sensitivity, and then we have neurodivergent friends and they experience rejection sensitivity, and then everyone's feeling burnt out, and everyone's saying, I'm sorry, I can't come, and everyone's feeling rejected, and it can be really challenging. And like, obviously it's completely valid, like everyone can have their feelings around that, but also I think it's better to be open and in your communication than to just leave people in the dark, because that's when things go awry, because the other person's like, oh my God, they don't like me, like, blah, 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 they don't want to hang out with me. And if you're just like, look, I really appreciate your invitation, I really value our friendship, but at the moment I'm really struggling, so I'm really sorry, I know this means a lot to you, but I can't actually come to your party or whatever it is. And it's still going to hurt them, it might still hurt them emotionally, but we can't do things, just like, obviously we're not going to go around hurting people's feelings intentionally, but we can't sacrifice ourselves just because someone else might be upset about us saying no. It's challenging and it's hard, but I think having relationships where we can have these sorts of discussions and in a respectful way is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think definitely important. I think something I like to do in my prevention, like preventing burnout, is pre-schedule weekends where there's nothing on. So it doesn't have to mean, that doesn't mean necessarily that when that weekend rolls around that I'm not going to do anything. It just means that I haven't pre-booked things into that weekend. I like to call them my schedule-free weekends. So, as an ADHDer, when we're putting all that pressure on ourselves every day to follow routines and be on time and all of those things, that's a lot of mental pressure. And having these like weekends where they're scattered throughout the year, where it's a schedule-free weekend, what that means is I've got nowhere to be at any certain time. So I get to just march to the beat of my own drum, wake up when I want to, get out of bed when I want to. And I can, like, I'm still doing things. It's not about not doing anything. It's just about not having a schedule to follow and meet. And there's no expectations on me, like externally, that weekend. And that, honestly, it's such a nice feeling
Yeah.
to just be able to, roll out of bed when I feel like it and get dressed and do whatever I feel like, knowing that I don't have to be anywhere at any certain time. No one's expecting anything of me. And I just keep those weekends completely blocked out for schedule-free weekends. It can really help with managing burnout.
Yeah, and I think self-care is so important. And again, we were talking about this a little bit in the last episode. Whatever that looks like is totally okay. And often what self-care looks like for neurodivergent people might be a little bit different. And I think something that I find really helpful, like you're talking about how you really enjoy kind of spending time with your PhD, or like, kind of researching your interests. And like as a neurodivergent person, particularly autistic folks, like we have a very like monotropic mind, and our brain really wants to really focus on one or a very few things. And we live in a society where our attention is pulled like 20 million different ways. And for me, self-care is having days where my attention isn't pulled in like a million different directions, and I don't have like all of these different demands on me, where I can just sit, my nervous system can be regulated, and I can just, chill in my own kind of space. That's something that's really important to me, and something that really helps to kind of have a bit of a reset. And I also find, we've talked about mindfulness, and Teena's probably going to go on her special interest monologue here. But yes, like I know, like when I talk about mindfulness with my clients, I always feel like I have to convince them, because they're like, oh my gosh, like, oh, meditation, mindfulness, like that's so woo woo and silly. But no, like there's legit scientific evidence that it does help. And I can say for myself, even just like 10, 15 minutes, even just a few times a week, it makes such a big difference to my emotional regulation. It helps me to reset. I get to go to this place in my mind where there's nothing and no one, and I can just be there. And it's a really nice feeling. So,
Yeah.
So I have like an app that I use for that as well.
And mindfulness for neurodivergent people it looks different to what it is that we see in pop psychology and social media. It is different, because the thought of having to sit and meditate for long periods of time that's just torture for the ADHD. So it is different, and the way we apply those strategies and principles is different for neurodivergent people, and just each individual, as like in general. It's not a one size fits all thing. We talk about the strategies and the concepts and all that sort of jazz in mindfulness, but it can all be adapted to your unique needs and you as a person. And it has been instrumental in my life to help regulate and prevent burnout.
I think just to wrap up, I know we've talked about a lot of strategies that are more for the individual, but it's really important and totally okay to ask for help. So whether that's professional help, or whether that's from like your partner or your family. I think in our individualist society, we're told that we have to go it alone and we have to figure it all out ourselves. And sometimes when we work with others, we can lighten the load for everyone. So it's really important to consider that as well. Like it's not just about you changing your life or the way you do things. It's also about perhaps learning how to lean on others and kind of seek that support. And I know that can be really challenging, but it's okay. It's completely okay to need support from others. And we're meant to kind of live in connection with other people as well. So certainly keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, there is so much to it, and I think that understanding yourself, your unique needs, your unique way of being in this world is important to being able to put together a burnout prevention strategy plan. And so there's a lot to it.
Yeah. definitely. Excellent. So thank you to everyone for joining us for this episode of Divergent Dialogues. In the next few episodes, we'll be talking about rejection sensitivity, which I think is a big topic for a lot of people. So yeah, I guess if you're interested in that, subscribe. And yeah, we'll hopefully you'll well, we won't see you. You'll see us or hear us again.